We are joined right now as we welcome you back to the Steve Malzberg Show by Mark Tapscott. He's the executive editor of the Washington Examiner. Hello, Mark.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Glad you could join us. Thank you very much. So the numbers are out for the enrollment in Obamacare, and it's not looking good.
No, it's not looking good at all. And those numbers, I have the impression from the way they were arrived at, took a few stretches to get over 100,000. But that's a long way from where they need to be.
And, of course, they say enrolled, but they don't say their definition of enrolled doesn't necessarily mean they paid, whereas the industry says that you're not enrolled unless you pay. So who knows how many people actually paid. All right, let's talk about some of the things. And, you wrote a piece about media bias and how most Americans see media bias, so why do journalists keep proving them right? And you talk about a Pew Research survey, which is very interesting. And it's true. And I just want you to hear Mika Brzezinski. We played this earlier. First, she on Morning Joe the other day, she said, God, I hope so, when one of the guests said the Obamacare site will be up and running by the end of November. And then she said this. Do we not have it? Okay, well, it's jamming. But she also said that if this thing messes up, I'm going to throw myself off. And she stopped herself, so I put her on official suicide watch. I mean, that's just one example. We do media bias. Here it is, folks. For the folks who didn't hear it.
Isn't there the concern that if you wait 6 months, that the party that's been trying to undermine this every step of the way will dig their fingernails back in?
I think that's...
And they have said they have a deadline, and it will work. And if it doesn't, I'm going to throw myself off. I mean, it just has
2 weeks.
2 weeks from now.
All right, so she's going to kill herself if Obamacare doesn't work. I mean, that's just a small example. But let me ask the question you asked. Why do they keep proving it?
Well, as far as that particular lady at MSNBC goes, I'm not sure that I would consider her in the same category as other professional journalists because, she's a morning anchor, and I don't think she is the equivalent of a New York Times desk editor, for example. And I say that because the traditional media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, and so forth, there was a time when they really were respected institutions. You can argue about whether or not they were biased in the 1950s and 1960s, and I happen to think they were. But there was no question that they were respected by the public. They had readers that, depended on them every day, and viewers that depended on them every day to know what was going on. And you look around today, nobody believes them.
No.
And you would think that just as a matter of a reality check, that these guys would be saying, what are we doing wrong? But I don't see a whole lot of that.
No, and I got to tell you, I think it's just ingrained. I just think that, look, I've worked in newsrooms, a television newsroom where at the time I was doing some sports. I was also doing my politics on radio, and one reporter came up to me and said, my husband and I think you're great, but don't say anything. I mean, there's really a fear. Yeah.
We've all had those kinds of experiences and conversations. If you've been in newsrooms for any length of time and you have views that depart from the liberal conventional wisdom, you either keep your mouth shut or you suffer the consequences.
Let's move on to another piece that you wrote recently, and that was the Democrats preparing to fight for a minimum wage bill. It's funny, in New Jersey where I live, when Cory Booker was running for the Senate seat that he won, his list of priorities when he did his commercials was, I'll fight for an increase in the minimum wage. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's what you're talking about right now? But it's a fight they're not going to win on a national level, of course. And it's a fight that when the facts come out, business leaders will tell you, employers will tell you, it's counterproductive to the part-time employee to mandate an increase in their salary.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And frankly, one of the things that mystifies me about the minimum wage issue is it's one of the few issues in economics that for the most part, liberal economists agree with the conservatives. There are a few of them out there that still try to make the case that the AFL makes, that somehow or another making a job cost the boss more makes him more likely to hire you when you have fewer skills. But by and large, everybody sees that the minimum wage hurts employment because it makes it harder and more expensive to hire somebody, especially young, inexperienced teenagers. But every 2 years we get these bills from people and Democrats in Congress and presidents when they're in the White House proposing to do it, and I think it's primarily just maybe out of blind habit.
Yeah, or politics, so that they could say
yeah.
the evil Republicans wouldn't raise the piddly minimum wage. Although in my great state of New Jersey, the people who will go to vote voted in and automatic. They put it in the Constitution now that it's going to be raised $1 and then it's going to be indexed to the cost of inflation, and it's going to go up every year, which is insanity. Speaking of New Jersey, you wrote a great piece after the election of Chris Christie and Terry McAuliffe, and why Chris Christie is the most credible official right now and Terry McAuliffe is not.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, I think, when you look at it, that a guy from a deep blue state is very seriously looked upon as a possible Republican nominee in 2016. And I think that is, and the point I really was trying to make in that piece was that is not so much a function of his particular views or his particular style so much, though the style is much more part of it than the views. It's the fact that he, for whatever reason, people believe Chris Christie. They see him as credible. They see him as trustworthy. They see him as, frankly, the opposite of about 99% of the people in Congress, in the White House, in the government, in the media, frankly. And that ought to tell, again, everybody else, guys, they don't trust you. They don't believe you.
Yeah,
They do trust Chris Christie.
Well,
Why
I don't know if anything's going to convince the others. Listen, great talking to you, sir. Hope you'll come back. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's Mark Tapscott, executive editor of the Washington Examiner, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, former Virginia Governor Jim Gilmore